Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking about Carl Eugene Watts, aka the Sunday slasher. So, what is a serial murderer? It's a person who kills two or more people over a period of time, whether it be weeks, months, years. As long as it's more than two people, they are considered a serial murderer. So, a little bit about Mr. Watts. He was originally born in Killeen, Texas. His father was in the army, and his mother was a school teacher. His parents did divorce at the age of 2, where he ended up moving to Michigan with his mother. His grandma did describe him as a strange child. She went on to say that he did like to hunt rabbits and skin them at a young age. Um, Around age 12 is when he did start to fantasize about murdering people. When he was 13, he did get meningitis, which held him back a grade, and because of that, he was always bullied. And he did go to college, but was kicked out after 3 months because he would stalk women around campus, and a lot of students there believed that he murdered another student, but there was no evidence pointing at him. So his criminal background, police believe that he committed his first murder before he was 15, but like I said, there was no evidence to prove that. On June 29th, he was arrested for sexually assaulting a woman. He was sentenced to Lafayette Clinic, which is a psychiatric hospital, where he was released November of the same year. And he started his killing spree in 1974 at the age of 20. So his victims, the victims that he was charged for was for Gloria Steele and Helen Dutcher. It's been said that he's admitted that he's killed at least over 80 women, all ages ranging from age 14 to 44, and it is mostly white women who he has murdered. So, modus operandi. So, modus operandi is a certain way a killer would do certain things. For example, for Mr. Watts, he would kidnap his victims and he would torture them and murder them, which is typical for a serial murderer, but this was his modus operandi. It's the way he did things. So his weapons, from all the research that I did online, there were no weapons listed, no important weapons, and he did not have a signature as well. I know some serial killers do have signatures, like some maybe will draw an X on their victims, or something like that, something that lets people know that, hey, this person killed them because they left their mark on them. So the crimes took place in different jurisdictions. When he was after he lived in Michigan, he did move back to Houston when he was older. So the police believe that he killed women in between Houston and Michigan, which is also why it was so much harder to prosecute him, because all his murders were scattered out, and there was no DNA testing back then that could prove that he did kill those women. So the bodies were discovered in the victims' homes typically, but if he did kidnap his victims, he would throw them in a dumpster where they would be found. So how did he get caught? Well, he was arrested for breaking into the home of two women in Houston, and he tried killing them, but he was unsuccessful. So he was arrested for breaking in. So sentencing, Texas did give him 60 years in prison. Um, He was charged with breaking and entering with an intent to murder, which carried a 60-year sentence. Texas did give him that deal, and if he confessed to 12 murders, then Texas would give him the 60-year sentence and just charge him with um, breaking and entering with attempted murder. So since he agreed to the 60 years, um, after the 60 years, um, at the time, Texas had a law that allowed nonviolent felons to have 3 days deducted from their sentences for every 1 day served, as long as they were well behaved. Watts was a good prisoner and had enough time deducted from his sentence that he could have been released as early as May of 2006. Um, the law was abolished. A lot of people protested against it, so he was eligible for early release. In 2004, a Michigan attorney, Mike Cox, went on TV asking anyone to come forward with information in order to try and convict Watts of murder to ensure that he was not released. Someone did come forward. His name was Joseph Foy. He said that he had seen a man fitting Watts' description murder Helen Dutcher, a 36-year-old woman who had died after being stabbed 12 times 12 times in December of 1979. Mr. Foy identified Mr. Watts by his eyes, which he described as being evil and didn't have any emotion. Although Watts had immunity from prosecution for the 12 killings he admitted to in Texas, he had no immunity agreement in Michigan. Before his trial in 2004, law enforcement officials asked the trial judge to allow the Texas confessions into evidence, which he allowed. He was charged with the murder of Helen Dutcher. A jury convicted him on November 17, 2004, after hearing eyewitness testimonies from Joseph Foy. On December 7th, he was sentenced to life in prison. 2 days later, authorities in Michigan started making moves to try him for the murder of a Western Michigan University student, Gloria Steele, who was stabbed to death in 1974. Watts' trial for the Steele murder began in Kalamazoo, Michigan on July 25, 2007. Closing arguments concluded July 26. The following day, the jury returned a guilty verdict. Watts was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole on September 13th. He was incarcerated at a maximum security prison in Iona, Michigan, and he died of prostate cancer on September 21st of 2007 at Jackson, Michigan.